Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christi Clemons Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate balance with author Faust Ruggiero. I hope I said that right.
You got it.
Good. The author of the Fix Yourself Empowerment series, including the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, the Fix Your Depression Handbook, and the newest one in the series, Fix Your Anger Handbook. And there's a fourth one coming out, so we'll talk about that later. But gosh, this series, I think just couldn't come at a better time when everybody's nerves are just shot. We're depressed, we're anxious. We need that empowerment. So welcome, Faust. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Christi, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So you've got a background in psychology. Can you tell me a bit about your background?
Yeah, I love people. I've always loved people. All my life being involved with various ways to help people. Went to college, studied psychology. I've been in private practice now. I think I'm in my 37th or 38th year, something like that. And then another 10 years in clinics and things like that. So it's been a long but very exciting ride.
Yes, oh, that's wonderful. And so when did you start writing this series?
We raised the kids, and it's at the time where I said, okay, I don't have those commitments. So around 2016, 17, I started doing the research. And then, of course, familiarize yourself with the publishing industry, because if you're going to do it, you want to do it right. And then 2019, we put the first book out. That was the Fix Yourself Handbook, and it's been going ever since.
Why did you decide to write this series?
I looked at self-help, saw tons of information there, but I just did not see where it could all come together. And there were action steps like we do in counseling. You know, we don't just throw a lot of information at people. We then have to personalize it. We have to give people action steps that they can take so they can go out and execute what we're doing. So I thought, if I can write a book and it had short chapters, 7, 8 pages, and condense the information people needed in that particular chapter, and then go to action steps. Now, here's all the information based on that. Do these things, which is what we do in counseling. So I wanted this book, the first book, in my mind, I wanted it to simulate a counseling session. That's what I wanted.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what types of things we do to fix ourselves?
Well, in the first book, when we started with all the processes, I talk about first, slowing yourself down. We're trying to change the world and we're going as fast as we can. We don't have time to hear the information, let alone interpret and work with it. So we need to slow down. That's the first thing. Then I talk to people about purging, I call it. Let's get the stuff that's not working for you either out of your life, or at least let's start working with it. When people come in, they'll say, I've got all this anxiety. And I say, how much caffeine do you take every day? And they say 4 or 5 cups. And I say, can we start there? And they look at me like I'm crazy. How can I do this? We need to purge things like that first. Let's get the things that aren't working for you out of your life, physical, emotional, intellectual, whatever it may be. We start there. And then I want them to get honest with me. And this is the big one. This is the one where they say, yeah, I can do that. And then we start going deep. And after about 2 questions, they start to get a little uncomfortable. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. You will get uncomfortable because our brand of honesty is based on emotional survival, not getting to the cause of anything. We want to cover it up and get it out of the way. So I start with those things. Slow down. Let's get what doesn't work out. And let's get really, really honest.
Now, how can someone do that, the getting honest, with a book?
Well, I teach how to do that in the book, and I give the steps to do it. What I tell people is, first of all, there are facts. And I want people to understand, if you're going to get honest, you're going to get factual. The facts will make you uncomfortable. That uncomfortable feeling is not something to run from. That's where you're going to start working. And if you don't know what to do and you're working with the facts, that's where you ask somebody for help. A lot of times in the books, I'll say, here's what we're uncovering. This is going to kind of light the fire, if you will. But now maybe go get help from someone. Check into a counselor, a significant person in your life you can trust. If it's hard to do it on your own, so I always tell people, get some help. The last book I just finished writing, I probably have get to a counselor or support person or 12-step person or whatever. I probably have it in there 40 or 50 times in the action steps. It's great. You get that information, but there's going to be a part where maybe you get stuck. If you don't, that's great. Keep going. But if you do, there's nothing wrong with getting help. This is your life you're talking about.
No, right? Well, and we're so resistant to that. So, like, where's the accountability though? If you've got a book and you're reading the book and you're working through the steps and you're getting all of the deep, dark, gnarly stuff out of there. So I guess the accountability could come with finding someone to help, finding a counselor, et cetera, et cetera.
The other thing I should mention is that I write my books as journeys. So we start from that confusing, conflicted places, but when they get to the end of the book, they get a real good look at what it's going to be like when they get through this problem. So if it's anxiety, I show them how you get through this whole journey and you get to a point where your anxiety is reduced. Most of us never get to the point where it's gone, but that's not what we're looking for. That's unrealistic. But we get to the point where we can say, boy, it's really manageable. I get it every now and then, but I know what to do with it. And here I am. Now I'm seeing myself more functional and I'm happy and my life has a little more tranquility, a little more balance, a little more peace in it. That's what I'm looking for. So when they see that and then they start going through chapter by chapter, because the chapters build to get you to the end of that journey, the lights all start going on. And I start getting emails. I have couples that are taking these books and they're reading a chapter at a time because the chapters are designed. You're reading 7 or 8 pages. Almost anyone can do that. If you think about it, and then they get to the action steps. Now they're discussing them. Then I get emails, this one step, how can we do this together? And I'll get those kind of things. So I know they're working with them.
That's great. And so you're getting feedback from people who are doing well. Yeah. What kind of things are people saying about it?
It's surprising. When I first wrote the book, all the publishers and the agents said, never going to happen. You have too many topics. The chapters are too short. You can't put these action steps in because what if it doesn't apply to someone else? And okay, I've been counseling for all these years. I got a reasonable idea. What we got through reviews and reader comments is love the design. It's easy to read through. I can go 7 or 8 pages. I can go do the action steps and I can start getting through them. And I always advise them, stay on the chapter until you are able to work those steps, then go to the next chapter. And they're coming back and saying, you know what? This is the big thing that people are saying. Finally, someone has said, here's how to do it. Love yourself. Feel this. Go there. Be mindful. All this. That's a great message. But how do you get there? They're all saying, finally, you're telling us how to get there. Mindfulness example. I never use the term. That's a catchy term today. I use keep things conscious in your mind. Think about them while you're doing them. Stay in your moment. Stay in today. And I tell them how to do that because if they learn how to do that, now you're not on what I call autopilot and making decisions based upon whoever you're following. So it's all that they're coming back with that kind of thing where I'm thinking about what I'm doing. You're focusing me in and I'm not wasting any time. It's not 40 pages of a chapter where they go back and forth and you're getting all these words and they're saying in 8 pages, you brought it right, concise, to the point. I got the message. It's not in language that is scientific or medical. I broke it down. And everyone's getting it and they're applying the steps. It's wonderful to hear back when you know that the research paid off.
That is wonderful. And it sounds like these are very manageable steps. I mean, you know how there are some people that they have to feel like they get it right. And am I doing this right? I'm not, this is so big and kind of break it down into steps. Sounds like it's very manageable.
Designed to be that way. If you come to counseling, I'm not going to give you some big task. I'm going to break it down and say, here's 2 or 3 things. Here's the steps. Do them one at a time. Doesn't matter. Try to get there as best you can. The very fact that they start working them is such a huge change from where they were. I tell them, I'm not trying to get you to be perfect. I wouldn't want you to think about that. Now you're going to look at yourself and compare yourself and you're going to do all those things that just don't work. Do this the best you can. The very fact that you're trying is a huge step. Go as far as you can. If you're not sure, I provide, even in the books, I provide emails and get what you need. Here's my website. I return messages and they're going into counseling a little more. It's a little more accessible these days than it used to be. We don't quite have a stigma. So they can do this. We're seeing a lot more people going into counseling, not just from my books, but in general. So they're getting help. That's what we want. We're not keeping it inside and it's a secret anymore.
No, and so many people need this. I mean, the modern way that we live anymore just breeds anxiety, depression, disconnectedness. The previous episode before this one is someone talking about transcendental meditation and how it creates happiness. And there are studies about how, especially here in the United States, people just are at the lowest numbers of happiness on the happiness scale, the global happiness scale. So this is needed very much so right now. What do you think is keeping people in anxiety and depression at this time? I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to ask you a few simple favors. First of all, please rate, review, and share this podcast wherever you're listening. You know, it sounds like a simple little thing, and it is, but it has a huge impact for us because it helps other people find us in the podcasting algorithms. I don't know how it works, but I do know that it helps a lot. Next, if you would subscribe or follow wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you're listening, just hit subscribe or follow, and that helps you and it helps us. It helps you because then you receive notifications when we have a new episode that's out. It helps us because, again, algorithm magic, I don't know what happens, but it helps. And then finally, you can support our podcast in a tangible way by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast and then click on support the show. Now, we have a new feature too. We are now on Patreon. You can find us on Patreon. You can also find the link to Patreon when you go to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast. So on Patreon for $3 a month or $5 a month, you can support your metaphysical and spiritual growth. You can learn about upcoming guests and you can get early and ad-free versions of the shows. So please support us. This podcast is free for you to listen, but we have costs. And quite frankly, they come out of my pocket. So if you like this content, if you get a lot out of it, please see what you can do to give back. Thank you so much.
We have become, in our nation, we go too fast. We are listening to pieces of our information that are inaccurate. And in some cases, it's shock media or whatever it may be, they're purposefully not providing the right information. They're leading everyone down a very divisional track. And as long as you can keep people separated, they fight each other. No one trusts each other. They're going at each other all the time. We now have an election thing going on. I have no idea what's going to happen in November. It could be pass right through it, or we could ignite something we've never seen here before. So simple advice. I said, slow down, get away, disconnect for a couple hours a day, get off those phones, get off the internet and just go for a walk, go exercise, sit down with your family, sing a song. I don't care what you do, but disconnect. But they can't do it because they're addicted to these devices now and their train of thought. They don't realize, and they'll deny it, but they're getting it from there. And it's bits and pieces. It's not even the whole story. They don't look beyond. If you hear something, you don't walk away and say, yeah, that's the way it is. You say, well, that should be your cue to say, let me go look at this farther and get my information so I can make up my mind based on what I saw. They're not doing that. We're going real fast.
Right. We're not taking the time to look through and be critical of what we're reading, consuming. No. I had read a quote the other day, and I'm going to butcher this, but something like, if you can get the people where they don't know what to trust, that creates this very easily manipulable, malleable type of mindset, right? So we don't know if we can trust this. We don't know if we can trust that. We can't even trust our own mind sometimes. I do see that as a big problem. So
that's an old power design. That's the way, if you're looking to wield power, you want to keep the people who you want to gain power over. You want to keep them off balance. And it works. It's very easy to do. If you have 10 people in the office, you just have this one talking about this one and that one over there before you know what they're fighting, and you are in control. When you can do it to a population and you can divide them on race and sexuality and religion, there's 100 things, pick them, and everybody's fighting against the other person. When you look at it, you ask yourself the question, what in the world are we fighting for? I don't think anybody has the answer.
No.
There's no reason for it.
Mm-mm.
When you think about it.
We're just off balance. All of us are off balance. The whole theme of this is balance. And when we're off balance, then nothing seems right. Nothing makes sense, right? Gaslight.
When I counsel, and even in the books, I talk about life in balance. And the example I give is a pendulum. It goes back and forth, it swings, but it always wants to come back to center. That's its design. But we have this world tilted so far in one direction, and we're doing our best to keep it up there. Well, the other faction on the other side is trying to pull it down. There never seems to be a middle ground, never a place where that point just comes down and sits and relaxes. So we're always in this swing. We do it in our personal lives. There's the internal imbalance, and our whole nation does it. The pendulum is always pushed to one side. It's the middle where all the intellectual stuff is. The middle is not, I don't want to say it's void of power, but power is in that point being expressed efficiently. When you get to the side, one side or another, then you get into that 1% that we hear so much about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where people are caught. They're caught in that. They don't trust anyone at all. And that's huge.
That is a very scary place to be when we're talking about an entire population, right? So let's go back to the series that you've got here. You've got a really nice little book trailer. I just love it. It's very, very easy to understand, very flashy, just kind of breaks down the whole thing. It's a video on Vimeo. We'll put that in the show notes. But you put the series of books in a certain order. Can you tell me why this order came out?
First book came out in I said, end of 2019. Now it's time to write the second book, and the pandemic hits. And I'm watching the anxiety, and I'm watching people being disconnected from each other. The only thing they had were cell phones and whatever they saw on the computer. And I saw the anxiety level rise. So I said, okay, let's do this series. Let's keep the original design. People then knew how to follow along. We kept action steps where they need to be. And the next step was go into anxiety. I've treated anxiety for so many years. So I put together a book that told people these are all the things that happen with anxiety. This is what you're going to expect. This is how you can start moving past it. And what I do when I write the books, I will write the first half of it, gives you all the information about anxiety, but the second half is always now the treatment part. Okay, here comes your treatment plan for anxiety. And they get about 10 chapters of various things to do with all the action steps. So the anxiety came next. And then at what we saw as the pandemic ended, where people were going into depression. So we were seeing a lot more people coming into counseling for depression. So I said, well, that's the logical next step.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. And that was successful. Then now I'm watching things, and I'm watching the anger, whether it's in your car or on the phone, families, workplaces, high schools, where we used to be the boys would fight it out. Now it's the girls that they're fighting. I mean, they're tearing into each other, vicious fights. And I said, all right, we need to go into anger. We need to show all the various kinds of anger and then what we can do about this. So that's been book number 4. So, and then now we have substances, and we have marijuana as our savior now, a drug.
It is.
It has its place used properly, but we know it's not going to be used properly. That is not our drug history.
No, that's not what we do with drugs.
No, it's not.
Maybe there needs to be another one. Fix your division.
It's one of those things we talked about, how we want to go in the future. We're going to go with addiction, and then we're actually going to go into abuse after that. All different kinds of abuse, starting from verbal right on through human trafficking. We're going to take it right up, and there'll be at least right now 10, 11 different kinds of abuse, how they develop, what happens with all those things, and how you do, and what you do to protect yourself, to identify, to protect yourself, all those kinds of things.
These are such valuable topics, and you actually break down like how to fix this. I think that's wonderful. Now, which I have to say, that's a pretty big claim to fix anxiety, to fix depression. But it sounds like you're getting some.
If you have that and you say, gee, I'm going to go to a psychologist or a counselor, whatever, what are you going for? You're saying, well, I want to fix this. I want to be better. That's all I'm doing with the books. I'm essentially, after years and years of counseling, I'm giving you the information that I have been using with my people all these years. and I simply put it into written form. The hopes, it's one of two things I'm looking for. Either you've never had any help, so maybe this kind of jump starts you and you get moving in a direction, and maybe you do go get it. Or if you're in a counseling program, you may read this and then bring it to your counselor and say, hey, I'm getting this. What do you think about it? And it augments what you're doing there. Those are the two purposes I have in mind when I wrote the books.
No, I love that. In fact, I'd love to have a set here in my office to recommend to my clients as well, because I think that could be very helpful because I do this kind of spiritual coaching, spiritual counseling. In fact, something really stuck out from your promo materials, something that you call pure love, spiritual love. I love that. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. In the first book, when we start talking about balance, pure love is the point. That's where we want to get. When you get yourself to the point that everything inside feels balanced, then you get to pure love. People talk about unconditional love, and they're trying to do that with traditional methods. My heart, my head doesn't work that way. To be unconditional has to come from the soul, so to speak, from the spirit. That's when it's unconditional. There's no judgment there. And when you get to the point that you're balancing your thinking and your emotions, balance the way your body works, and then you get into the balancing yourself, at least connecting with yourself spiritually, you experience a different type of love. It has no judgment whatsoever. It does not ever look for payback. It doesn't look to complete itself. It is whole in and of itself. And that's what you wrap around your world.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And it is possible to get there is what
With following the first book, that's what it's designed to do. That's the balance we're talking about. And I should say something about internal balance. People think it's this destination. You keep working, you go higher and higher and higher. It's not. On a scale of 1 to 10, you can be balanced at a 10 or you can be balanced at a 1. Wherever your framework in is fine. The balance doesn't matter where it occurs. It's just so those 4 attributes are balanced. So it could be the person whose IQ is 80 and the person whose IQ is 180. It doesn't matter. Both can achieve balance. And if you think about it, that's logical. It makes sense. All we're talking about is getting the intellect, the emotions, the body, and the spirit to work together. That's all we're asking. It's a very simple premise. It's not hard.
No, this is not hard. And I do believe that all of this it's an internal job. It's an inside job, right?
That's where all the power is. We don't have any power coming from outside. It's from the inside. I talk about a concept called intellect over emotion. Very simple. It's just getting your brain to engage before your intellect does. When you talk about how we're getting angry with each other, what we're doing is we're reacting fast. Okay. Yesterday, Joe Biden says, I'm not running anymore. And then they all started reacting. And this rotten person, and you saw the factions attack each other. And I thought to myself, take a step back, slow down, get a plan, breathe, get a plan. What am I going to hear? How am I going to react to this? What do I want to do that's going to make sense? Ask yourself these questions before you say, and you go and react. And that's what everyone's doing. They're already screaming about this one and that one, and we're going to get this. And our politicians are doing it routinely. Every campaign is mudslinging. That's all it is. And I'm saying, that's great. You went after that one. I got no idea what you're doing because you didn't give me any type of a platform whatsoever. You just told me about this other rotten guy. And that's what we're doing. And if we're doing it in the power places, in the influential places, guess who's following? And all the adults will follow that. And kids live with them in their homes. And then they follow it. And before you know, we have something that is so out of control. So we've got to get a handle on not reacting. Mom's old thing, count 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. Wisdom, like you can imagine, just take a breath, slow down, walk away. As soon as I heard that yesterday, I said, oh, he pulled out. And I've said it to myself, I think I will get away from everything, from television, phone, computer. I'm going to get away for a while and think about this, and I'm going to decide how I want to approach it. Mm-hmm. That's what I did.
Feel about it. I need to sort this out for a minute. Yes.
I want to know how I'm going to respond. I'm not going to react to this. I'm going to know how I want to respond. What's the first obvious thing is I am going to start looking at information not coming from one side or the other. What do we need? If you ask yourself the question, what do we need nationally? What do we need internationally, economically? All those are the things you look at. No one's asking the questions. They want to know whether or not they're going to support this faction of the population or this thing that, voters want. And they're very small issues that we have tremendous emotion over. It's just thinking about it, getting the intellect, like giving your emotions in your brain, both reside in your intellect. I'm sorry, reside in your brain. There's no Hallmark heart for emotions. I keep telling people that it's all in your brain. Where are you going to supply your energy first and how much? You get to make that decision. We're not. I always tell people that's why I have job security, because you keep going to emotion first.
Well, and emotions are just energy that are created by our thoughts.
That's all it is.
We can control our thoughts.
Right. And if we get better at thinking before we emote, then your emotion is based on factual information, based on something that has an intellectual basis. But if you're not giving your thoughts enough time to circulate and give you some guidance, then I ask them, what are you emoting on? It's going to be fear. It's going to be insecurity. And that's going to come out as anger.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, new age, this is all new stuff. This is the way the human brain works.
Exactly.
And our brain is designed to go fight or flight when necessary for a few moments. We keep it there. Talk about scary. We live there.
Ooh. And then the adrenaline and the cortisol and all of these things are just wreaking havoc in our bodies because we're not deregulating.
When we talk about calming down, I say, take some time, replace your phone, meditate, do some yoga, pray, exercise. There's so many things you can do. And they look at me like they're deer in the headlights. Like, what? I said,
I need to react. I need to figure out what I think about this.
You want me to disconnect? When I have people come in, they know in the office, you need to put your cell phone aside. Well, I'm just going to have it here. I'm expecting, I said, don't play that with me. That's not happening. I come from a generation where phones were on the wall and Dad, can I use the phone? No. It was that. Is it an important call? No. Okay. So, we didn't have cell phones. We went on long trips across the nation. We didn't have cell phones. Please don't tell me.
We had a pocket full of dimes.
That's what it was. But I said, please don't tell me you left your house. You got to my office in 15 minutes. You're going to be here an hour and 15 minutes home. For that hour and a half, this connection will kill you. Please don't tell me that. I said, now you're going to scare me.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is such great stuff. I can see that you are very caring and skillful with your clients. This is wonderful. We need to all just reach out and do the best we can with everybody. But you also have a radio program. Tell me about your radio program.
I do a once a month radio show on All Positive Talk radio station. And I just take in guests that are doing what we're doing. And we have nice conversations, try to get our listeners some information that makes sense. I do it the second Thursday of every month. And it's really been nice. I think we're up to about, from what I'm told, almost 750,000 people that listen in. So, that's nice to hear. I'd love to do more, but I just don't have the time. You pick, do I want to write? Do I want to counsel people? And I still love counseling. I haven't met the person who comes in my office that I haven't absolutely loved, after all these 4 decades. I do the radio show and we've had a couple celebrities come on. That's nice. But the people that I like are the ones where we're doing what we're doing now, where we're saying, okay, let's tear some things apart, give some people some things that they can, when the show's over, they say, okay, you know what? That made sense. Let me think about that. On that, I'll get an email that said, if you get one, you feel great. Somebody got it. Yeah. You said this, and I'm not sure exactly what I want to do next, but I got it. Wonderful. Because that person is going to tell someone else. And as people start getting it, that's why we do these things.
It is why we do these things. And where can we go to hear that show?
You could go to my website, actually. My name, it's listed on there. And you can just click down. And they archive it every year. So all 12 from the year are there. So you can see who I interviewed this time or a month ago or 2 months ago. But you just click on the website.
On the website. And that is faustruggiero.com. I will put that in the show notes. And then if there's something, one thing we can all do to help us fix our anxiety, fix our depression, fix our anger, what is the one common denominator? What can we do?
I would tell you, first of all, understand that if you're looking outside of yourself and somehow you're going to get something that's going to make you feel good, you will never find it. It's like you're following the parade and no one's leading. Okay. Everything we need, we were born with. It's all inside. We have a tendency to look outside of ourselves. Be willing to slow it down, look inside yourself, say, okay, who do I want to be? What part of it's not working? What part of it is working? Let me see what I can champion. Let me see what I have to fix a little bit. You're going to find both of them. No one is just this mess that has to be fixed. We are all doing some pretty great things, but we have some things that hold us back. And that's where we feel the anxiety and the depression and the anger and all those kinds of things. That's where we resort to substances. We've been on this earth for millions of years. We didn't have pharmaceuticals. How did we get here? I mean, think about that. There were no big drug companies. That's another game. It's a hoax that so it's all inside you. The goal is to get away from the pharmaceuticals, get away from the alcohol and all that, and all the drugs, and be willing to look inside yourself and say, yeah, I like that part. It may not be in step. It may not be trendy, but that's a good part of me. And I want to keep that. And then I want to take some things that I can do maybe a little better. I want to feel a little better about myself. I don't want to be as fearful or insecure or whatever. I want to learn how to do those things and get better about that. When you do this, you feel so good about yourself that you don't have to check in and see what the world is doing. You might want to know just to see it from time to time, but there's no obsession to check in. You don't feel like you must. You feel good. Every day I get up, I know what I'm doing. I know how I feel. I'm going to make it feel good. I'm going to take time for myself, and it's not going to be connected to somebody else's thoughts. That's the other thing. Spend some time with yourself. We don't know how to do that anymore. Be alone and be happy. Factor that in. Meditation does wonders for that.
Yes, it does.
For anyone listening, meditation is easy. It's not a hard thing to do. Get in a quiet room, get the sounds out, sit down, relax. And if you're not sure what to do, you can use a mantra, you can use other techniques. Go online, they show you what to do, and just practice. The key is to keep doing it, just like exercise. You keep doing it. And in a couple months, you're going to say, I'm feeling different. It takes a while because, your body has and your mind have to get used to it. Don't drink 2 cups of coffee before you try to meditate, please. Because they do. This sounds funny, but they do.
Yeah, yes, they do. So thinking so they won't go to sleep, but there are ways that you don't go to sleep. That's not a problem.
Exactly. Your mind will tap into its own energy reserves. You will not follow it. In fact, those of us that do this, we don't ever think about caffeine and those things. The energy is flowing all day long.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you think that we have not gone over, have not discussed that you think is important?
No, I think we've done very well. I just kind of leave people with focus on yourself, as I've just been saying.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid. This is a big key. Don't be afraid to be out of step just a little bit, because what you're following is just the trending step. It's not the right steps. No one ever said. It's just what's popular. So everybody gets in it together so they feel safe and secure in that little herd. You don't need it. You only need yourself. Once you get there, you will find that you'll look at the herd and you can pick out the parts you want, and you don't have to pick out the rest. Be willing to look into yourself. If you can connect with a higher power and God or whatever, by all means, go there. Find that spirit, because that's where your power is. That's your core.
And it's all inside.
It's all inside. And you know what? That's where you're going to find your beauty. You're going to get honest. You're going to get a little sad. You're going to get, my God, I don't like this part of me. And that's good, because you have the power to change it. And you may need some help, and that's okay. But when you go deep inside yourself, you're also going to find the beauty that you put aside to follow that crowd. We're special people. Every one of us. Go find your beauty. Be willing to do that. Leave the herd behind.
I love that. So the series is the Fix Yourself series, Fix Yourself Empowerment series. And you can get these books, I'm sure, wherever fine books are sold.
Mm-hmm. Amazon has them. They all have them, yes. And there's links on the website.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for joining me here today, Faust. It's really been very, very informative, educational, and fun too. I love talking about self-help and self-improvement and growth. Yeah, this was wonderful. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me aboard.
Don't know what to watch next? Decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win-win, right?